Hi. Thanks for taking the time to view this video. Well, we're done with Easter now, but there's one last thing I want to do to help us celebrate and understand how important Easter is. And we'll ask Chuck from Chuck Knows Church to show it to us.
Straight in the desert, a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain and hill made low. Comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God.
Why do we talk so much about death as Christians?
You know, he really lived a good life.
Yeah, he sure did.
Is the world ultimately a cold place? Does death really have the last word? Perhaps death does have the last word. Perhaps despair is the best response in a world filled with fear and corruption. Light seems to be squeezed out by the darkness. It's easy to be cynical in a world filled with death. Sometimes it seems we relish being cynical about death. But Christ doesn't speak so much about death. God only allows 3 days of such talk. Now, in Mark's Gospel, Christ tells his followers 3 times, I must die. But he speaks 10 times about his resurrection. You see, Easter is Christ reminding us that God hasn't given up on us. The world matters. We matter. And the violence, cynicism, hatred, and oppression, those things will not prevail and they cannot last. And just when you think it's over and lost, just when you think it can't possibly be put back together, hold on, because God is doing a new thing. Renewing, regenerating, reintroducing, restarting, and restoring. Death isn't allowed in. Who is allowed in? Who is allowed to be renewed, restarted, and restored? We are, even us, the same people, only transformed. Can you believe it? Resurrection! Now God says that when the greed and oppression and cruelty that you see and witness all around you seems like it's going to win, it is right then that resurrection occurs. And God wins, Christ wins. Resurrection.
Oh, window.
Go watching it.
Oh, window.
Go watching it.
Oh, window.
Saints go watching it.
Oh, window.
Go watching it.
We are Easter people. Now God says to live like Easter people. People that know that death does not have the last word. People that live on this side of the resurrection. We are
Easter people.
We are
Easter people.
Oh, window.
Go watching it.
Oh, window.
Saints go watching it.
Yeah. I want to be in that number 2, y'all. Yeah. I want to be in that number 2, y'all.
Happy Easter, Easter people.
I really enjoy that video. Now, Christ was dead, but he was alive. Have you ever been in that situation where there's 2 things going on that are just opposite from each other? You're hurting from a sunburn, but you're just enjoying yourself at the beach. Two separate things: hurt and feeling good. Well, Jesus was dead and he was alive at the same time. He was both. Today we're going to talk about something similar to that we are both saints and sinners 100% of the time, every moment of our lives. St. Paul wrestled with this, and in Romans, in chapter 7, verse 15, he talked about this. Let me get my Bible. Some religious traditions distinguish between saints who obey God's will and sinners who disobey. Others set apart saints as some super holy people. Regular Christians like you and me aren't particularly bad, they would say, but we haven't done anything extraordinary enough to be called saints. Verse 15 says, I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. I want to do what is right, but yet I do what I hate. You know, real life is complicated. We like to see ourselves, who we are, by seeing all the things, all the good things we do. But at the same time, we have some deep knowledge of our failings. Have you ever been in that situation before? Where you made a decision and it's a bad decision, but you still did it? Like your mother said, don't eat those chips. And what did you do? You snuck the chips out and ate them in your bedroom. We are both saints and sinners. And that's, really kind of how it is. Now let me continue with what St. Paul said. But if I know what I am doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. I have discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably, that's a hard word, do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. Oh, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? Thank God, the answer is in Jesus Christ our Lord. So you see how it is. In my mind, I really want to obey God's law, but because of my sinful nature, I am a slave to sin. A slave to sin. What does it feel like to be a captive to something? You know what it's like, and I know what it's like. You know because you're sitting in class saying, what am I doing here? I want to do this. I want to go out. I want to, be doing this or that. But instead, there you are in class, listening to the teacher again, taking a test, whatever. We never are perfect. That's a fact of life. Being a follower of Jesus isn't about self-improvement or being better. It's about being made new. It's about being made new. When we're faced with questions like, am I good enough? We can ask, good enough for what exactly? To be loved by God? Yes, absolutely. To be forgiven? Done. It's already done. To be a Christian? Hold on to the promise that God is at work in you and will never leave you or forsake you. Being a saint isn't about what I do or don't do, but about who I am in relationship with God. Let me read that again. Being a saint isn't about what I do or don't do, but about who I am in relationship with God. If you ever had a chance to talk to a saint, or what people thought was a saint, Mother Teresa is a good example. There she is amongst all the lepers in India, taking care of them for year after year after year till she was, I think, in her 90s. She was a saint. Fact is, the Catholic Church made her a saint. But she said herself that she was flawed, that she had her times where she was just a sinner. And there's times you don't even know you're a sinner. They're called acts of commission, where you didn't do something, didn't even know you were supposed to do something. So, we're both saints and sinners. Martin Luther described Christians as simultaneously saint and sinner. He called us Christians, saints and sinners simultaneously, saint and sinner, because he redefines saint as a forgiven sinner. We are forgiven sinners. We are called saints not because we change into something different, but because our relationship with God changes as a result of God's grace. Luther said, the saints are sinners too, but they are forgiven. Saints are sinners too, but they are forgiven. And all of us are forgiven. When I look at myself in the mirror, I see the reflection of a sinner. But when God looks at me, he sees me through Jesus' loving eyes. Thanks be to God.